I can't believe you sold that product. I can't believe you sold that product. I can't believe you sold that product. I tried my best to keep my facial expressions blank while saying those 3 sentences. I said the same 3 sentences in 3 different ways to try to show you how important elements of voice are to your delivery of presentations or other messages that you're giving audiences verbally. Today, I'm going to go over 9 different elements of voice for you to think about as you're developing presentations in the future. The first 2 I'll talk about are volume and pitch. So volume is just like when you're driving your car, how loud or how quiet the music you're listening to is. So if we're speaking with a small volume, that communicates something to the audience that's very different than if we're communicating with a high volume. It has a different message. Pitch, however, is the rise and fall of your voice. So you can think of pitch like when you're having your music charts, you might have lower pitches and higher pitches. So a lower pitch is when your voice drops down here, and a higher pitch is when your voice drops up here. So sometimes when people are excited, they have higher pitch. And when they're not so excited, they have lower pitch, or when they're trying to demonstrate seriousness. The 3rd and 4th are rate and pauses. So rate has to do with the slowness or quickness of how you're speaking. Are you really drawing out your words? Are you trying to make the audience think that you're thinking extra hard about something? Are you demonstrating some kind of questioning or maybe uncertainty? Otherwise, you could be speaking more quickly. You could be demonstrating to the audience that you're proficient in a topic. You could be talking about something that you're passionate about. You could be rushed for time. So your rate communicates something to the audience. In addition, you can use pauses. So have you ever had a teacher who just kind of asks a question and stops, maybe for longer than you feel comfortable? Oftentimes speakers will use pauses strategically to create some kind of discomfort in the audience, to give people time to think about something, to demonstrate their seriousness, or because they really want something that they said to sink in. Is it sinking? The next 2 are pronunciation and enunciation. So pronunciation has to do with whether you're saying a word correctly or whether you're saying it using regional dialects. So in terms of correctness, I watch the show The Magicians on Netflix, but I always call it Magisticians. I don't know why, I just do. Sometimes you're reading, you've only ever read a word and you don't actually know how to say it, so you might pronounce it incorrectly. That happens a lot of times with speakers who are talking about other people and pronouncing their names. So if you ever have to cite another person or talk about another person, it's always good to try to figure out how to say their name if you can. If they're kind of a celebrity or a known person, you can look for other news reports to see how they're saying it. Otherwise, sometimes you can ask around. If it's another person in the workplace, you can just clarify with folks. Pronunciation can be about correctness, but pronunciation can also be about regional ways of saying things. So it could be bagel versus bagel, or bag versus big. I can't even say them because I'm a bag person. It could also be just preferences. So data versus data. Those are examples of different pronunciations that would all be acceptable. So with regional and local and preference kind of pronunciations, there's some leeway, but there are words that have correct pronunciation. So we want to make sure we get them right if we're saying a word that we've only ever read or a person's name. Enunciation has to do with our diction and how we're controlling our mouth, our lips, our tongue, our jaw to create the sounds that make the words. So enunciation, if somebody's not enunciating, they're just kind of like slurring their words like that. However, if you're enunciating, you're making sure that each syllable in that word comes through so that the audience can clearly understand what words you're actually saying. volume, pitch, rate, pauses, pronunciation, and enunciation. Those 6 are kind of the basics, but things start to get weird after that. So there's timbre, T-I-M-B-R-E, sometimes mispronounced timbre. Timbre is about resonance or sound quality, and it helps you distinguish one sound from another sound. So for example, there might be 2 women in your life that have the same general pitch of voice, they speak with the same volume, but you can tell those are different people based on the timbre of their voice. So a time when I think about timbre most is when you hear a voiceover at the start of a movie when they say something like, in a galaxy far, far away, there's like a man speaking with a very rich voice, as opposed to sometimes you got those radio talk show hosts that have those zippy little voices. That's a difference in timbre. So the sound qualities that help you distinguish differences in sounds, it would be like a trumpet playing a C note and a saxophone playing a C note. They're both brass instruments, but they sound different because of their timbre. The last 2 are tone and emphasis. So with tone is more about the emotional valence or power behind the words that you're saying. Is the tone happy or sad? Is it angry or delighted? Is it reserved or confident? So tone is about that emotional power that's behind the voice. Sometimes that just ranges from like negative to positive or excited to not excited. And finally, last but not least, we have emphasis. So emphasis, I often think about as the words that you're choosing to focus the sentence on. So you might emphasize attention and then say your message. Emphasis is, again, focusing on specific words or phrases in ways that kind of punch them through to the audience. You might be able to emphasize words using some of those other strategies that we mentioned, like pauses, but sometimes you can just emphasize words in just the way that you say them. The audience knows that they're important. We just talked about these 9 elements of voice. Now, our ability to control and adapt and change these elements of our voice is referred to as modularity. Modularity, the ability to control these aspects and use them purposefully, is super duper important to delivering messages, both in one-on-one settings and in more presentational speaking environments.